Well, good day to you. It is May the 18th, 2025. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you happen to be. My name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. I also would like to just take a moment for anybody who is interested in knowing more about this information to do your own research, look into it, investigate this information for yourself, see if this is true for you by checking out some of the information on some of the websites that I provided links for in the description portion of these videos. So if you look at the very top, the Share International link is the best link to get the best background information from in one spot. So hopefully you'll do that. You want to come back and join the discussion? Post a comment, let me know what you think. You could ask a question by posting your question in the comment section, or you could email me that question to searchforsigns@mail.com, and then I'll try to answer that question in the next video. And really appreciate it when people do, and I want to thank everybody who has done that since the last time I put a video up. All right, now I had a question coming from Mr. Tim. Gary, would you say the percentage of people who know about Maitreya is about to hit 1%? I would. Well, if you're talking about this information and the fact that Maitreya is already in the world, then I would say that's probably a pretty good guess, but I don't know for sure. Ben would be the only one to be able to answer that question accurately. I think the last time he said, somebody who asked him that question, I think it was more than I thought. It was like 20 or 40 million people, something like that. I can't remember the exact number. It doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Now, if you're talking about those people who believe this information, I would say it's probably significantly less. Those people who are doing anything with this information, even less than that. I was really surprised, Tim. I don't know if you knew this information. I can't remember when you said that you first found out about this information, but I was surprised when Benjamin Crème made the announcement that Maitreya had given his television interview, how many people in the media went crazy trying to find it or talked about it, or there was a report about it or something like that. And it was unfortunate because they kind of pinned their sights on Raj Patel, who was not Maitreya, who admitted he was not Maitreya, did not claim to be Maitreya. Maitreya will never say yes or no until the day of declaration. So when asked, if he is ever asked, if he is Maitreya, he will find some way to not answer it or to not say he is, but he won't come out and lie and say that he isn't Maitreya. Okay, so Raj Patel correctly, because he is a Maitreya, said that he was not Maitreya. But how people went crazy over this. And the one that comes to mind is Steve Colbert. And I don't know if you know who he is. He's a late night comedian. I'm not a huge fan of his, but it is what it is. Seemed like he really knew about this information for quite some time, because he did I don't know if it wasn't a whole episode on it, but there was, he talked about it for a bit. Of course, mockingly accused Benjamin Crème of being a fraud and all that kind of thing. But he definitely knew about it. And then when everyone pinned their sights on Raj Patel, and then it come to find out it wasn't him, well, then people started to accuse Benjamin Crème of being a fraud, right? Which, that's the right, and I can kind of get it, but kind of not, because Benjamin Crème never said that it was Raj Patel either. So if Benjamin Crème had said Maitreya was Raj Patel, and they come to find out he wasn't, then yeah, that would mean that Benjamin Crème was a fraud, right? But he didn't, So if you're talking about people who know about Maitreya Buddha, now this is another facet of your question that I'm trying to answer. There's 500 million Buddhists out there, and they all are expecting Maitreya Buddha, the fifth Buddha, to come back, just as the Christians are awaiting the Christ to come back. So if you ask any Christian, who's coming back, they would say it was Jesus, right? Well, if you ask a Buddhist, they wouldn't say it was Jesus coming back. It's Maitreya Buddha, the fifth Buddha. Or if you're, walking around the Middle East and you're talking to a group of Arabs and you ask them, hey, who's your awaited teacher that you think is going to come back? Well, they would say it was the Imam Mahdi. If you don't know this, and I know you know this, Tim, but just in general, if you don't know this, Maitreya is the one awaited by all the world's religions, and they're all expecting him to come back at a different time in a different way. So, as I understand it, the Buddhists are awaiting Maitreya Buddha to come back in about 300 to 500 million years from now. And if there was any truth to that timeline, of course, there would be no reason for us to talk about the return of Maitreya at this point. If, to be honest, if the Christians were accurate, which I don't think they are, that Jesus is coming back at the end of the world, there's really no reason to talk about his coming either, because that would be it. You know what I mean? The reason why I talk about Maitreya in this way is because not that he is some figure that I'm trying to get everybody to like or to vote for or whatever like that. It's about the future of humanity, really, about the need for peace, about the need that, but also the fact that we can do it and how to do it and how simple it is to accomplish justice and peace. So that's really the fundamental reason why we talk about it. So if I was talking about some event that was happening at the end of the world, or 300 million years from now, what's the point of talking about it as much as we do, right? So, that's another perspective of, your question. And then the other thing I want to add is about the divisions, right? So there are divisions in thinking about the return of the Christ, or about the return of Maitreya Buddha or the Imam Mahdi. They would not agree, the religious groups would not agree en masse that the Imam Mahdi and the return of Jesus are the same person, just as Sri Krishna and the Imam Mahdi, are not the same person or whatever like that. But in reality, they are. In reality, the return of those teachers, the Kalki avatar, or Sri Krishna, or Jesus, or the Imam Mahdi, are the same individual. Just as there are truths within every single religious text, and yet there are these divisions. Just as in political ideologies, there are truths within the political ideologies that are accurate, that we need to work on, right? But yet there's these huge schisms. And I do think that there is a lesson for humanity in our divisions, and I think we'll eventually learn it. But the division is harmony and the lesson is unity in diversity, is what it is. So all the religions and the differences in religious approaches is a lesson for humanity in unity and diversity, just as each nation has a right to govern themselves in the way that they see fit. Even though we have these wars, we have these political squabbles between countries and little conflicts here or there, or all-out wars between countries, is a lesson for humanity in unity and diversity. And same thing with political groups. There is a lesson within the problems in politics, and that lesson is unity and diversity. So every division we see in life, because there's divisions everywhere, they're being really exacerbated by the love nature of Maitreya. They're also increased and more pronounced because of two avatars, or one in the main, the avatar of the spirit of peace and equilibrium, that is overshadowing Maitreya, and his energy is saturating the world at this time and affecting all of us, bringing to the surface all the corruption, but also bringing to the surface all the divisions, will eventually bring about unity in diversity. I know it seems kind of counterintuitive, but that's the purpose of why we are having the divisions that we are having. The reason also, too, is that humanity needs to make a choice of how to live. Do we accept the principles of Maitreya and the teachings of Maitreya, which is share the resources of the world, or do we continue on in the way that we're doing? And a portion of humanity will say that we should continue on the way that we're doing, but the vast majority of humanity will see the need to share, and that will eventually bring about the unity and the harmony and the peace that we all really desire. So, but anyway, thank you very much for the question, Tim. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I know I kind of went on. I could have answered it a lot quicker than I did, but there was a lot more to it that I wanted to add, and I really do thank you for your question. Okay, so the next question, Maitreya says he's God. Jesus said he was God. Sai Baba said he was God. I'm assuming you think Maitreya is God. Well, he is, but so are you, the person who answered this question. So am I. So are everyone who's listening to this channel. The God that Maitreya says, when he says he's God, is the God that we all share. Now, I've never really heard Maitreya come out and say that he's God, you know what I mean? So, or Sai Baba, or even Jesus for that matter. These are all things that people have said about him. But in the prayer for the new age, that Maitreya has already given humanity. That's one of the tools and the keys to realizing yourself as divine. It starts off with, I am the creator of the universe, which would mean that he's in that invocation, you're saying to yourself that you're God. But it's not you personally. It's you, the one that we all share, the God that we all share. When Jesus said, I and the Father are one and the same, he was not saying that he and he alone and the Father are one and the same. He was just expressing the truth of what he realized at that moment, was that he realized totally that he was the self, which eventually we will all eventually do, which is the reason why Jesus said also, greater things than this shall you do yourself. But Jesus dramatically kind of explained to all of us throughout his life the course in which we all take in order to become a master. And when he said that, toward the end of his life, he was already starting to realize the truth of who he was. And that's the truth which we all need to learn for ourselves. And it helps with honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment. That's the other key to learning self-realization. And you can't just intellectually think about it. You have to really look at yourself objectively with courage. And it takes courage to do this, because it's exact opposite of what we identify with, which is leads me to the other question about identifying with yourself as, it's not a question, but it was a comment somebody made about identifying themselves as Maitreya, right? Or the Christ or whatever. We all have wrong identifications, but what was the comment that I wanted to talk about in that regard? All right. Where is it? This is coming from, is it Nanucha? I can see how someone could mistakenly think that they are Maitreya, because Maitreya invites us to allow him to work through us. That's a very important point to think about. It's the energy flowing through us coming from Maitreya that people are identifying with as them possibly being Maitreya. Because Maitreya invites us, okay, you need to have a strong sense of who you are in order to be able to tell the difference. And even if you can readily tell the difference, there are all kinds of reasons why someone might prefer to think that they are Maitreya instead of themselves. Very well put. I did want to throw in a few things. It's as much about knowing about who you are as it is about being detached. If you really practiced honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment, you not only would not think that you're somebody else, but you also start to identify with really who and what you really are, which is the self. And we all have wrong identifications, and we're all, quote unquote, guilty of doing that. So it's not that somebody who thinks that they are somebody else and identifies with this, or whether it's a young kid who's pretending to be a pop star, or dressing up like Michael Jackson or Madonna like they used to do back in the 80s, but we still do it to some degree, pretending to be somebody else, right? Is a form of wrong identification, of course. And when you realize yourself as a self, you don't do that. You don't follow anybody else. That's why Maitreya doesn't want any one of us to follow him. Does that make sense? So, but in terms of what you're saying is so true. Now, the reason why she's saying this is because I had a discussion on my last video, I think it was, but I've had it before. So if it wasn't just necessarily the last one, it's been before. I can't really remember all the things that I talk about in every one of these videos. But there's somebody who comments on my channel who thinks he's Maitreya, and he's not the only one. I've had a few over the years, not very many because it's not a very large channel. If I had more viewership, there would be a lot more people that would comment saying that they were the Maitreya, or they are Jesus, or they are the Imamati, or whatever. And now there's a guy going around saying that he's the Imamati. What is causing this, right, is what it is. But I did want to say that, and I'm just saying this for everyone so you can know for yourself, is Maitreya has never commented on this channel. He's never spoken on this channel. He's never commented. As far as I know, he's never commented. But there isn't anything that somebody has said that has kind of lead me to believe that was Maitreya. So and also Maitreya will not go around saying he's Maitreya. That's a very, very important point. You don't need to ask me, is that Maitreya? Because people have asked me, this person commenting, are they Maitreya? Well, they're not, right? And it's not for me to say that they're not, but I'm just saying, and I have to kind of walk a fine line with this, because it does create confusion for those people who do follow the comments, right? But Maitreya is not commenting on this channel. I doubt he'll ever comment on this channel or come on this channel and talk on this channel or whatever like that. Because, and the reason why I say I doubt is because I don't know what will happen after the day of declaration. But at the same time, I doubt he will, because he won't need to come on this channel. He'll be speaking to us directly through our own media. So what's the point of coming on a really tiny YouTube channel and talking? This channel is really about generating an interest in who and what Maitreya is, have a general interest in the priorities, and then hopefully, and it is my hope and intention, that one or two people or whatever, however the number is, discover this to be true for themselves and do something about it. But other than that, there really isn't anything that these masters need to do with this channel. So there's not anybody commenting on this channel that's a master, or because I've had people say that they were masters and all that kind of stuff, and there's just no truth to it. It's a lot harder than people think to be a master. That's why there's not very many of them out there. And it's insanely difficult to become a Christ, and it takes millions of years for these masters to become a Christ. It took Maitreya a long time. I don't know about a million years, but millennia after millennia after millennia of working at it and toiling with it. And it's supposed to be one of the most arduous tasks that a master can take after becoming a master, is to become a Christ, to literally embody the Christ principle. Not very many of them do it. It doesn't mean they're not doing wonderful work in their own way, but they're not. It's insanely difficult, and it's insanely rare to become a Christ. So people just like to throw that term out there because they think they can just do it whenever they think about it. And that's the other thing too, is that the thoughts that we have, not all the thoughts that we have are gold. Sometimes some of the thoughts we have is just garbage, right? I know I'm speaking for myself, right? You have to discern what is real and what isn't real to be able to get through this. There's illusion everywhere, and that's part of the path that we all have to go through in order to become a master. We have to see the real. We have to start to learn to see the real for the fake and the false. And the best way to do that is honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment. So hopefully that helps. But I did want to, and I think this could add to the discussion, because his comments always do. And this is the only time that a master comments on my channel, is when I actually read out either all of it or a portion of Benjamin Creme's master's articles. But they're wonderful to read. And I always encourage everyone to read these. So if you are starting to do some investigation in this to see if it's true for yourself, check out the Share International site and read some of Benjamin Creme's master's articles for yourself. Internalize what he's saying for yourself that way. Way better than just hearing me read it. But I wanted to read something coming from the article True and False Christ, which was written back in the early 90s, when yours truly was a lot younger. And was able to do a lot more things and stay up later and all that kind of stuff. But it talks about the distinction between true and false Christ, why we're seeing more of them now. And a lot of people accuse me of talking about a false Christ. And that's their right, because they're coming from a religious background, and that's what it says in the Bible, that there would be false Christ. But there has always been people that have thought themselves to be Jesus, right? Even before the quote-unquote end times. But why is it happening now in the way that it's happening now? This might shed some light on it. So that's why I want to read this. Hopefully it'll give you a better insight into what people have and everything like, and not have, but have the view that they have of themselves, I guess, is a better way of saying it. But this is coming from Ben's master, True and False Christ. From time to time, a master may take upon himself the task of inspiring large numbers of people who, strictly speaking, do not constitute his immediate group. This is frequently done when an opportunity arises whereby his thoughts and plans can gain wider recognition and response. Today, several masters are involved in an attempt to influence constructively many not fully prepared for this stimulus. The hazards are obvious: overstimulation, negative reaction, glamorous misunderstanding, all are possible. Nevertheless, much can be achieved with a carefully selected group, whose aspiration is high and whose priorities are sound. At the present moment, for example, there are many well-meaning individuals who consider themselves to be the Christ, the Lord Maitreya, or the Messiah, and who await a call from humanity to come forth. Their presence indicates that humanity is prepared to see the Christ, that the message of his coming has gained acceptance, and that the time for his return is nigh. Responding to the unusual stimulus, their hearts react ahead of their minds, and they feel called and destined to fulfill the Savior's task. That they could not possibly do so is not important. Only the few believe them in any case. Nevertheless, they act as a signal to many that the time is ripe for the appearance of the teacher, and so help to establish the climate of expectation and hope. Well known or not, they keep before the public the idea of the Christ return, and strengthen the hand of those who work with him. Needless to say, media representatives enjoy this manifestation more than most. With impunity, without commitment, they can safely publicize these messengers of God, sure in the knowledge that no one takes them seriously, no one is offended or shocked, none feel threatened or betrayed. In the face, however, of the presence of Maitreya himself, these same media workers know not what to think or to do. More and more, and against their better professional judgment, they are coming to realize the truth that the Christ is in the world, working behind the scenes to bring about the changes which daily dazzle all beholders. They resent his apparent inaccessibility and understand not at all the laws which govern his emergence into the world of men. They fail to comprehend their role in that emergence and stand baffled, awaiting events in which they can react. Soon, these events will galvanize the networks to action. Soon, the world's reporters will flock to certain cities where many will have seen the Christ. There they will find the proof they seek, and following their story will make known his presence to all men. And I just wanted to say one thing before we go. Talking about what the situation that happened back in 2010, when Benjamin Crème made the announcement that Maitreya had already given his television interview, and the media and people just went crazy trying to find that interview. It's the exact same thing he just said here, where the presence indicates that humanity is prepared to see the Christ, that the message of his coming has gained acceptance, and that the time for his return is nigh. Even though Raj Patel ended up not being Maitreya, the interest that just came out of nowhere was, in a way, indicative of the readiness of humanity to see Maitreya, to learn from him, to grow from him, to hear what he has to say. And just like Benjamin Creme's master just said, the media doesn't really know what to do with Maitreya because he is apparently inaccessible to them. He's not saying who he is in this way because they're not used to people not doing that, doing it that way. But they, again, don't know the laws which govern his return. So I know there are people who have heard this story for years who doubt the fact that Maitreya is here, and that's fine, it's natural, and I'm not saying that you should believe this, but this is the reason why we have the situation that we're in. But at the same time, if we just go back just a few years when there was the word came out that Maitreya had given an interview somewhere at some time, even though Benjamin Creme never said it was in January of 2010. That's when everyone was looking. It could have been months before that, or years before that even. That definitely shows that the media is ready to hear what he has to say, but more importantly, the people are ready to hear what he has to say. So just be patient for a little while longer. It's coming. I love you guys. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I look forward to putting up a video very, 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 very soon. You guys take care. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.